Okay, Broncos country, what's going on? Sorry, it seems like StreamYard's having some issue. Had to get a second stream going, so hopefully you find this. But Luke Wattenberg was extended tonight, and I think some of us were pretty surprised about this. If you had watched my show with Mike Carmelini, we talked about this, and I kind of threw this out there in jest, but there was a part of me that thought that Luke Wattenberg could get extended this week. And yeah, am I a little surprised that maybe it happened before somebody like JFM or Malcolm Roach? Yeah, but guys, this makes sense. Is there some risk to this deal? Yes, but I think this deal also makes sense in some ways. So y'all be sure to let me know your thoughts in the comments on this. Be sure to like and subscribe as well. And shout out to Kalshi, sponsor of the show. Use the code DTB, get yourself a $10 bonus once you deposit $10 and you start trading on there. And be like me, I took the Broncos on an alternate spread, plus or minus 9.5, baby, against the Commanders, and I think that's looking good right now. So let's go ahead and get into the fun stuff, though, the details on this extension. Let me pull up Twitter. It's somewhere here. Well, at least I thought it was. Maybe not so much. So, hey, we'll start here with the market value and we can get into the deal. So, the deal details are this: Luke Wattenberg, 4 years, $48 million, 27 of which is guaranteed. And that comes out to $12 million annually. Okay. $12 million annually, 27 guaranteed across the contract. So you got to imagine that there might be an out after after that year 2 or probably that year 3 before going into year 4. But Hydra Ammo, I did see your message. I'm sorry that I couldn't keep that stream. Something with StreamYard, but Hydra Ammo saying, I like Wattenberg as much as the next guy, but there's more potential in the draft. I'd rather pay JFM. So to put things in perspective, guys, Broncos had about $50 million in working cap space before the Will Lutz extension and now before the Luke Wattenberg extension. I would imagine with how things are constructed, they're going to enter free agency at this point with probably around $40 million to spend. That's just my idea. I think you could still extend JFM and Malcolm Roach if they wanted to. It's going to be interesting to see what they do. I think only one of those two guys gets extended, but I think you can get a comp pick for JFM, no doubt about it. And I think that they could bring him back if they really wanted to. But guys, take a look at this. This is put together by Spot Track with the impending unrestricted free agent centers right now and what they're expecting to get. And I would bet that it's above this, because usually going off of last year for their expected market value, everybody was signing above the expected market value. But you can see Tyler Lindenbaum, one of the best centers in the NFL. They expect him to get around 17. I bet he gets closer to 20 if he hits free agency. But I think the Ravens are going to re-sign him. Guys like Elton Jenkins, Connor McGovern, Kay Mays, John Michael Schmitz, these sorts of guys, they're expected to make more than what Luke Wattenberg signed for, or just around the same amount, like John Michael Schmitz at $11.8 million. Right now, yes, on the surface, Luke Wattenberg is tied for the top 5 most or highest paid centers in terms of average annual value. It's not the case when it comes to his guaranteed money, but I wanted to compare this kind of just where he's at right now when it comes to some of the other centers in the league that he's competing up against. So Luke Wattenberg, this is with PFF, but run blocking grade of 65.5 or pass blocking, and then run blocking grade of 68.4. That is 14th out of 38 centers and 15th out of 38 centers, respectively. He has allowed no sacks, which has been fantastic, and no penalties and no QB hits either. One, which is still putting him in the top 10 in the league in that sort of category if you're not super big on the PFF grades, which I understand. But if you're looking at some of the other guys that people are expecting to make more than Luke Wattenberg once this free agency period hits, hey, take a look at Connor McGovern. He's rated a little bit higher than Luke Wattenberg is in the pass blocking, but not as good in the run by a significant margin. And but he also hasn't given up a sack. And again, I think Connor McGovern's a really good center. Same age. I think you'll see him, get paid well over $15 million this year if he hits free agency. Another guy that was expected to make more, according to Spot Track, it's a guy like Elgin Jenkins. Hopefully, I'm pronouncing his name correctly. But you can see one of the worst in the league when it comes to run blocking grade, top 10 in pass blocking, but he's also allowed 2 sacks. That's kind of interesting. 4 penalties, though. Luke Wattenberg had 8. That's crazy. He had that one really, really bad game where he's getting penalties like all over the place. But this is something, again, where I think that Denver is getting good value if they had to fill this position in free agency with some of these guys that are going to make more money on the open market, haven't necessarily played to the level that Luke Wattenberg is playing at. Another guy from the Giants, John Michael Schmitz, expected to sign for around $12 million. Luke Wattenberg is definitely a better center than him. Yeah, and you watch the Giants play. Yeah, tell me who's the better center between John Michael Schmitz Jr. and Luke Wattenberg. It's Luke Wattenberg. And I'm not saying Luke Wattenberg's an amazing center. I think he's slightly above average. That's kind of how I see him right now. And yes, this contract this next year, it'll probably look a little expensive, but similar to the Pat Surtain contract, maybe not to the level of Nick Benito, but I think in the middle of this deal, it's going to look like an absolute bargain. No doubt about it. And then the other guy here, Cade May, is expected to make around that $12 million. You can see one of the worst rated run blocking centers in the NFL, good in pass. But yeah, again, graded lower than Luke Wattenberg for whatever that's worth, if anything. So, and that also has allowed 1 quarterback hit. So I do find this pretty interesting, that I think Luke Wattenberg was going to get paid if he hit the open market. I think he was going to get paid well beyond that $12 million range. I think it probably would have been around $14-15 million. And so, yeah, this makes sense in terms of continuity with Bo Nix over the second half of the season. I think that Luke Wattenberg has played a lot better of football. And I think this is a calculated risk, thinking that, okay, he's going to turn the page and he's going to get better. Will he become elite? I don't think so. He's 28 years old, but I think he still can become, maybe a fringe top 10 center in the NFL. I think that can be the case with how he is progressing. Maybe not to the speed that we wanted to see, but I think Luke Wattenberg, again, he has called the protections. I think he's been great with the mental aspect of things. Does he have some things to clean up in the run game? Sure. Again, he allowed, the 1 hit on Bo Nix this year, but that's kind of splitting hairs. I feel like with this contract, I think this is going to be a fine contract. Again, it's not all guaranteed. You'll be able to move off of him if you find another center that is better than him. I'm not super educated right now on kind of the quality of this depth when it comes to center. I know that offensive line in general, but usually I feel like that means tackles and guards. This is a great class for, so maybe we can put some draft capital towards that. That's totally fine with me, but I wouldn't mind drafting another interior lineman with the ability to play center as well. The big question mark now is we will enter free agency probably around, as things stand, around $40 million in cap space. You can, and that includes Ben Powers being on the roster for next year. You can cut Ben Powers and save about a little under $10 million. Does he agree to like a reduced deal to bring him back? That would be really, really great. You can have the continuity. That's what I would hope for, but maybe we do go draft a guard in the first or second round, and he's like we did Quinn Miners. I mean, that was the early 3rd round. And maybe you could surround Luke Wattenberg with 2 really high-end interior offensive linemen with Quinn Miners and another draft pick. I don't know what Sean wants to do, but I like the idea of having continuity, especially with Bo in center, moving forward. And I think it's going to continue to look better on the offensive line as time goes on. So I actually do like this deal. Now, I don't think that this deal is an absolute massive steal, but I think the Broncos could have been in a really, really bad position had they not re signed Luke Wattenberg. And then they're having to make some tough decisions on, hey, do we seriously overpay one of these guys? And when I look at this list right now, the only guy that I think is on another level than Luke Wattenberg is Tyler Linderbaum. And I still don't think he's hitting free agency. I don't think Baltimore is going to let that happen. So, likely these guys being average to slightly above average centers, they're going to be paid like they're great centers. And I think like right now, this contract with Luke Wattenberg, it's going to turn out to be just fine. So again, congratulations to him. This does give us flexibility to where hopefully we can draft some linemen. Maybe it doesn't necessarily need to be a first or second rounder, like I talked about, but you can draft a tackle with that fourth round pick or that third round pick, right? And develop them behind Garrett Bowles and Mike McGlinchey, right? We had to overpay Ben Powers and Mike McGlinchey in free agency because of how desperate we were to get starting offensive line talent here. Don't have to do that now with Luke Wattenberg signed. So that is nice. And it hasn't been until recently to where those contracts have looked better, right? So I actually really do like this deal, but we'll see what happens with Luke Wattenberg again, or with Ben Powers. But if the Broncos want to keep JFM, if they want to keep Malcolm Roche, they should be able to do that, and they can do it. Now, does JFM actually get like a Milton Williams $20 million a year contract? If that's the case, then yeah, there's just no way. We're not paying that with drafting Savion Jones. But you could bring back Malcolm Roche. You could get a comp pick for JFM. But overall, I really, really do like this. Like this move for the Broncos, even though it's probably not going to be the strongest or like the most popular extension, right? We've had some big ones with Nick Bonito this year, Will Lutz, who was really earned. So, yeah, that's about it, man. A great deal for the Broncos, and I can't wait to see, what they do next. They don't really have a lot of unrestricted free agents compared to other teams in the NFL, and they got a lot of cap space. So, and we don't really have any dead money on the books after this year with Russell Wilson and that $30 million gone. So let's just say something happens and, hey, you end up drafting a center in the fourth round this year that ends up developing into a starter next year or in like 2027. You can move off of Luke Wattenberg and eat some dead money if you need to. Like we're not going to have any bad dead money on the books. So I don't think that's going to happen though. I think Luke Wattenberg, I think he's been good. Maybe outside of some of the inconsistent shotgun snaps, that is still something that he has to clean up. But I don't think it's been as bad as it's been in the past. And Sean Payton could help out Bo Nix in this offense a little bit more by having Bo Nix under center more, which he did last week against the Chiefs, which I really liked. I'll get to some of your comments here. Again, thanks so much for tuning in. This is a late night stream. Hey, what's up, Blueberry? That's okay, man. It's okay you don't have any more. The Dolphins do not own us. It's I love your photo, by the way, but it's so funny. Ever since 70 to 20, we've been amazing, and y'all have just been straight ass. And how about that? Tua being on the books. Hey, if you cut him this year, it's over $100 million in dead cap, man. Y'all are screwed. Y'all are screwed, man. I love it when Dolphins fans come in here, talk a little bit. I think it's fun. Ronnie Garcia, yeah, we need to invest in the offensive line in the first round. I would really, really love this draft to be a meat and potatoes draft. You're drafting offensive line, you're drafting a defensive line, a linebacker, tight end, and you're drafting like one big weapon, hopefully in the receiving game. But I guess it could be at tight end too, and like another day 3 running back to complement with RJ. I mean, unless somebody like that running back from Notre Dame, falls to us. I mean, that would be pretty cool. Jeremiah Love, wouldn't that be great? So, yeah, this is a great question here, Rodney. Oh, and I'll say this, Anthony. Denver has a strong team, man. Absolutely. Absolutely. We might go to the Super Bowl this year. Who knows? As long as the defense stays healthy, it's going to be fun. Ronnie Garcia, do you think Waddle will end up in Denver next year? I would like to say yes. I mean, I would still spend my first round pick on Jalen Waddle. I think that would be pretty awesome. Hey, Dolphins fan, get back in here. How about that? But hey, I'm just a guy on YouTube. It's a lot easier for me to say, yeah, spend the first round pick on Waddle. Yeah, I think he does have a pretty affordable contract. So I ideally, man, I would love to give up like, a second this year and a third next year for him, something like that. It's hard for me to see them actually moving off a Waddle though, unless they get overpaid. That's how I see it. So we'll have to see, man. Yeah, imagine having Tua as your quarterback, man. I'd probably stop watching. Yeah, I mean, Tua is worse than Russell Wilson. Dude, you're not a fan of the Wattenberg extension? I think that, yeah, like he's actually played really good football this year. Now, the penalties, he had that one bad game where, dude, he was just getting like a shit ton of penalties, if I'm remembering correctly. But I think he's played really solid football this year, man. And I think he's been better as the year's gone on. Like when I was looking at this, I was expecting him to be slightly above average in both the blocking grade and the run grade, and that's exactly what he's been. And again, allowed one quarterback hit this year, no sacks allowed. He calls the protections well. I think he's a smart player. That's something that doesn't necessarily show up on the stat sheet. He just has to improve a little bit more. I think we'd like to see him improve more in his run blocking. And yeah, I think this is a safe bet. It's only going to get better with continuity, in my opinion. And again, if you need to move off of him in a year or two, I think you should be able to do it for minimal damages against the cap. And again, we don't have any bad dead money. So I actually really like this deal a lot. But let's see like the premium stats here. Give me a second to pull this up here. Oh, I didn't even share it here. So yeah, you can see here, he's 14th in the NFL in pass blocking at the center position, 15th in run blocking. And again, I still feel like he's got a lot more room to grow in run blocking. I think he's been a really solid pass protector for us. So this still leaves us room, man, to sign another player or two to an extension. It just depends on, do they want to spend the money to do it? Do they want to extend JFM? Or is JFM going to get an insane deal this offseason like Milton Williams got? If that's the case, guys, he was never coming back. But I think we could bring back Malcolm Roche and get a comp pick for JFM, and I'll take that. But you see here, I mean, yeah, I felt like there's really been a turn in Luke Wattenberg's game in the second half of this season so far, and you can kind of see that here with kind of halfway through the season. You just see that overall his blocking grades were just going up significantly. Of course, let's see, where was that big penalty game? Yeah, it was against Cincinnati. He had 5 penalties against Cincinnati, and that was awful. But really outside of that, he's played really well. I thought he actually, Chris Jones did have a good game, but it wasn't a game in which, again, I don't feel like Luke Wattenberg was getting absolutely destroyed all the time there by the Chiefs, man. He did have a tougher day in pass those 2 hurries, but overall, man, I still feel like there's more to the ceiling of Luke Wattenberg left, and I think he's only going to get better here. And I would say that, yeah, he might be in his late 20s right now, but he can still get better. And I think he's going to play good ball to finish out the rest of the year. And it would not surprise me if here in 2 years we're talking about him as, yeah, he's not a slightly above average center. He's a great center. Maybe like, top 10 in the top 10. That's how I feel about it. Do you think we have a chance against the Bills if the playoffs start today? Absolutely. Bills' offensive line is a mess. And again, that offensive line, McGovern, Spot Track is predicting him to make at least $16 million per year hitting free agency, man. Luke Wattenberg, I mean, dude, he would have gotten a dumb payday. He would have gotten a dumb payday if he hit unrestricted free agency. And those guys that are going to be signing for higher price tags, they're not going to be as good as Luke Wattenberg, man. That's how I see this thing. I think this is going to end up looking like a good deal here in like 5 months or so. Yeah, when free agency starts. But yeah, we got a chance against the Bills because of our defense. And they'll probably be coming to Mile High. And I don't think we lose one home game this year. Hey, what's going on? Samuel says, I've been a Broncos fan since the early 60s when every game was televised. Man, that's awesome. I've been watching some of the old Elway games. I watched his first comeback his rookie year against the Baltimore Colts in 1983 just a few weeks ago. That was really awesome. So going through some of those old games, but let me know if there's one that I really need to watch and pull up on YouTube. It's been a lot of fun. But Don, man, yeah, imagine having Tua as your quarterback. Yeah, hell no. We can look at here. Let me try and get to over the cap. And we can take a look at this. So this is our cap right now. We got a little under $4 million in cap space. Now this right here, team cap space, $49 million. This is without Will Lutz and Wattenberg's extension factored into things. So keep that in mind. And we have $1.2 million in dead money. How about that from cutting Trent Sherfield and Audric Estime this year? That's amazing. I love that. But again, really the only cut candidate that you could see on this team, well, there's a couple. I mean, you could save $7 million cutting Dre Greenlaw, but you would be insane to do that. You could save $4 million cutting Evan Ingram. I don't think you do that at all. But I do think we should sign a guy in free agency and draft a tight end as well to really help round out that room. But really, it's just Ben Powers. You can see you save a little under $9 million or so cutting him. Coming off of injury, we'll see how he looks. He should be back here in a few weeks, but it wouldn't surprise me if he maybe signs like a 1-year extension at kind of a lower number, and that way you can kind of spread out that cap hit beyond a couple of years and then draft behind him. What I don't want us to get into is like what the Cowboys did, is that they paid all their offensive linemen and then they didn't draft and develop behind them. So their offensive line aged out and it was just atrocious last couple of years before this. But then you saw them reinvest in it, and now it's a lot better this year. So that's something to keep in mind, is that even if we retain Ben Powers, we should start spending some like real draft capital on the offensive line at tackle and in the interior. Oh man, I used to live in Westminster off of Sheridan in like 96th. NFL usually raises the cap every year. Do your numbers take this into account? Yes, this is based on, like, I believe both Spot Track and Over the Cap have an estimation in terms of what the cap space is. But I'll tell you this, I think last year the cap went up maybe like 4 or 5 million more than what these sites had expected, which was really great. So there's the opportunity again for this deal to look even better in terms of the percentage of cap here in the next few months. We'll find out. So T Fishes, if we lose VJ and JMac, we'll have 2 extra picks, right? No, let me talk about that really quick. So if we lose VJ to a head coaching position, we'll get a 3rd this year and a 3rd in 2027. If we lose J-Mac, it all depends. Since he's restricted, it all depends on what tender we put on him. We could put like a day 3 tender on him to where, a certain amount of contract that, it's like he has to sign to a certain amount, but then if the Broncos don't choose to match, the other team has to give you a draft pick or something like that. With like first round tender, I don't think we put that on J-Mac, but maybe like what's the second round RFA tender for NFL? So that would be around, yeah, it would be around $5.5 million what we would pay J-Mac, which I think that's totally fine. It's either $5.3 million or 110% of the player's previous salary. So it'd be, yeah, around that. So say we put a second round tender on him. That means, hey, another team has to offer a contract better than that. He has to sign it, and then the team would give up their 2026 second round pick. So all that to say, it's very rare, T-Fishes, that a restricted free agent leaves in the NFL. It's very different than what you see with the NHL, where really it's just the NHL just decides if they're going to match an offer or not, pretty much. Same with NBA, although their rules are, very finicky, very weird, nuanced. Because we have team control over J-Mac, I can pretty much guarantee that he's going to be back on the team next year. No doubt about it. So I guess it would be a risk if we put like a third round tender on him. I think that there could be a team that could see him as a missing piece and extend him that way. But yeah, pretty much. Jaquan McMillan is definitely worth that sort of money. So I would put a second round tender on him, and I wouldn't see any team giving up that, along with signing him to a lucrative contract. Extend Malcolm Roach next. That's how I see it. Let me pull this up here in terms of the defensive line, because I think, and I think Spot Track is underestimating this position quite a bit, because they're saying, hey, his market value right now would be a 2-year, $15 million deal. If that's the case, you can re-sign both him and Malcolm Roach. But I'm telling you, I think John Franklin Myers is probably going to sign a deal in which he's making this around this $15 to $20 million a year. That's how I feel about it. And Malcolm Roach, I think you could sign him for around $10 million. So that's going to be interesting to keep in mind and just see what happens here on defense. Yeah, I don't see Roach on here, but I think, again, you could probably get a comp pick for JFM. Would I rather have McMillan or JFM back if you had a choice? I'd go with McMillan, man. I think if you keep Roach and have Savion Jones, I feel great about that. So I think we got the best secondary in the NFL right now. So I don't want to mess with that, man. We've seen our guys getting burnt up in the past, like freaking Damari Mathis. But that's a really good question, because I don't really think there's an obvious choice here. But for the price, I mean, again, I think JFM is probably going to be worth 3 times the amount of contract value this next year to Jaquan McMillan. So give me the better bang for your buck, and you can figure out the rest later in free agency and the draft. All right, guys, I'm going to end this. This is not past my bedtime, but it's past my stream time. Really, really do appreciate you guys coming in here. And again, shout out to Kalshi. I put a little bit of money on them, on the Broncos over there, to take care of the Commanders by double digits. So again, y'all use that code DTB this week. I'll be back again, do my power rankings, give my predictions for the games this week, picks this week, tomorrow. So that's going to be a lot of fun. If you guys are traveling for the holidays, Safe travels. Thanks for spending a little bit of your time with me. And until then, go Broncos.